if you realize the microbial development in any animal, when you add a new feed stuff to that animal, the micropopulation has to adjust to that, uh, and maintaining a proper pH level is the biggest factor in speeding up that adjustment time for the micropopulation there. So our motto is start to finish. And as you up the starch in the ration, you're always going to have a pH change in that rumen. And so we're right there, point of contact, um, to help that animal adjust with that increase in starch all the way to the end.
Welcome to the Beef Podcast. I'm Travis Mullenix, and today I'm lucky to have James Davison with us with Pro Earth Animal Health. Welcome, James.
Thank you. Thank you. Excited to be here.
Good. It's great to have you. And so give us a background. So you work for Pro Earth Animal Health, also a beef cattle producer. Kind of give the audience a background of who you are, what you do, and how you got where you're at today.
Sure. I was fortunate to have my dad was a very good cattleman, excellent manager, knew the cow calf business, knew the yearling business, fed cattle to fat. So I got exposed to all parts of the cattle industry from probably the age 10 on, with hands-on experience. And he always had a scientific reason for doing what he did, and he turned science into economics, and I think that's one of the best lessons he taught me. So I'm 61 years old. I do have a college education from Texas A&M University. I've been in this part of the business for 45 years. I've managed different operations, from registered. From registered seed stock operations all the way to bigger yearling operations. I've had a background in the yard myself. I ride and train horses and have my whole life. So not only from the cattle side, I understand some of the challenges on the horse side with stress and so forth. So I think hands-on experience and having a passion for being an advocate for the cow itself. Uh, that was instilled in me from the very beginning. What are you doing? How are you doing that? Is that going to affect that actual health and performance of that calf? Uh, and I think part of being that person is being an informed producer. I don't have any advanced degrees. But I have very good basics. I've been around a lot of people with higher advanced degrees that actually put those to use, um, in the production side of it, and I have respect for their knowledge and have used them as mentors and people for good advice all along the way. So that's something about me. I'm a dad. I'm a granddad. Proud of it. Have two good kids. They both ride and rope and handle cattle, and I'm proud of both of them. So, and my wife, she's an animal professional for her entire career. So as a family, we ride rope, we work cattle. Uh, we're into horses and cattle, and that's what we do. And then to lead into this, my involvement with Pro Earth, um, I buy a lot of calves at the sale barn. That's kind of what I do. I've got a little starting yard. I've always had uh, wanted to focus on incoming cattle and getting them to eat and drink, because that's really where it all starts. You get a certain number of calves that don't. Then they don't have the fuel for their immune system. Their microbes change due to that. They shrink, and that all turns into money. And I began, I've used all different sorts of products that, uh, quote, would help promote appetite and water consumption and so forth, but I never got repeatability um, until I tried this product. And some of the chemical properties of it, uh, just the pH of the solution itself, and it being a blend of essential oils and some other chemicals in there, it made a lot of sense to me. And they really didn't have a whole lot of material to satisfy my scientific uh, need there to really go try it. But as I worked through that process for 3 or 4 days, I decided, well, I'd try it, and am very pleased that I did. It's opened up a whole new uh, world to me as far as getting to go out, meet producers, talk to producers about cattle, see that same passion for that animal out there, and try to help give them solutions for the problems they're having. So that's a little bit about me and how I got involved there.
Is stress affecting your bottom line? Even routine handling, inclement weather, weaning, and dietary changes can significantly lower the rumen pH, causing cortisol levels to spike. Cortisol not only compromises the immune system, but also suppresses normal appetite and feed consumption. The solution? Cattle Active. Increase production and reduce the impacts of stress on your cattle for cents a day. Cattle Active restores the balance naturally. Want to learn more how a feeding program including Cattle Active can improve both profits and herd health? Visit us today at proearthanimalhealth.com. Be proactive with Cattle Active.
In this pen study at Bushlands, do y'all see a performance difference by?
Okay, so the base product is actually an oral drench, and that's how it started. So that base product we've evolved into mixing it into lick tubs so that we could affect uh, cow calf nutrition for long periods of time, so we could deliver our product that way. And then we developed an in feed product that this is what a lot of our research is pointed towards, because to get into that world and ask people to spend money on a product that they're feeding to hundreds and thousands and millions of cattle, which is our goal, is you need to back it up with good results. So in the cow calf sector, we saw great results drenching newborn calves, drenching calves at branding, and then again, say at preconditioning shots and weaning, just to overcome that handling stress and keep that rumen chemistry right. Uh, and then as we evolved in our knowledge about uh, cows shedding some of these organisms to these calves, and we looked at that and say, okay, how do we affect that? So we backed up 60, 90 days before calving, and we started putting these lick tubs out and affecting the rumen pH in these cows to see what kind of response we got from those calves. And personally, it's some of the changes in a cow herd and the weaning weights and the way those calves end up. Finished product has just been phenomenal to see. Just the overall health and changing a guy's bottom line, because his weaning weights go up. So I think that was a good deal. And then we start putting it in these feeds, and we start seeing the response and where we get the best response, and being able to say feed an increased energy level up front to a calf that's been stressed, and really giving his immune system that energy, and getting him back into homeostasis and going forward in those first 30, 45 days that producer receives that animal. So that's been our quest for 3 or 4 years, and we've done some rumen simulation projects to see exactly what effect we had on a ration, certain rations, and how that ration was broken down and utilized, And now this latest project, we went into live cattle, small pen. We understand that it's small pen, but for us, bankrolling this is, it's costly. So we take steps prudently. And we've had a small pen study done by Texas AgriLife Center in Bushland, Texas, a great place. They did this for us, and the outcome gave us a lot of insight into, okay, now we're going to go invest and do a big pen study. So repeatability in both of those studies has shown us that uh, we increase butyrate production, which is a volatile fatty acid, which is really um, responsible for rumen lining health. It has an antipathogenic effect, but specifically it gets back to colonic or large intestine fermentation in these animals. And I think that's one of the places where we can affect performance along with absorption and actual rumen health, which supports the immune system.
James, tell me about the product that Pro Earth Animal Health has, and how is it being fed?
We did. We saw a gain difference up front. I think it's important to recognize that anywhere where you have good management, uh, you have a good ration to start with. You're not going to get a huge response. And plus, those were all cell barn cattle. We probably had some genetic diversity in there and performance ability, but as far as that goes, our weights were really tight up front, the sample groups, so forth and so on. And we really had a significant over a pound a day in the first 30 days in average daily gain. And then the cattle leveled off, while the other groups might have taken 60 days to make up that initial shrink. And I think that's something that we talk about, turning science to economics and having an effect. That first 30 days is up front, and hopefully that affects at the end. We did see a difference in carcass quality there, but on a statistical measuring, there's not enough animals in there to say that power, that test had enough power. But me being me, in if I was in the feedlot, which I've fed cattle to fat, I've had a pen come out and be 20% or 30% select, and how that affects your bottom line. And I think interesting to our control group, uh, we had no selects in there. So we did realize the value, or put those cattle into the bonus that we're all on in our control group. And I'm not. When people go look at that study, I think they need just to understand our goal was to see what our product did. We had a combination treatment with Monensin. We had Monensin by itself, and then we had control. Uh, in this snapshot in time, we arguably had the best results, and then our combination, Monensin combination, were runners up. So I think that, just from me, there's still a big hurdle, and that's convincing the true nutritionist out there in the world, which we're going to work on, and we're going to do a large pen study. But me as a producer, I'd love to not have any selects when I sent 38 head of fats to be harvested, just because that affects my bottom line. And we've had guys that got on board with us 2 and 3 years ago, and they're getting consistent carcass results on different rations throughout the country in different weather conditions. So I think we're well on our way, and it's been exciting. Been a lot of ups and downs there, and as any research is, but I think we're good there. So.
Is this product something that Pro Earth Animal Health is designing just for the receiving end, or is it something that's been fed throughout the entire feeding program?
I think what our motto is from start to finish, because if you realize the microbial development in any animal, When you add a new feed stuff to that animal, the microbe population has to adjust to that. And maintaining a proper pH level is the biggest factor in speeding up that adjustment time for the microbe population there. So our motto is start to finish. And as you up the starch in the ration, you're always going to have a pH change in that rumen. And so we're right there, point of contact, um, to help that animal adjust with that increase in starch all the way to the end. Uh, Anybody that's fed cattle's been a victim of acidosis and bloat, and uh, what I call it a burned rumen. You get a carbohydrate increase or starch increase, and boom, you burn that rumen, and you start to get that rafter back, and that animal's done. Their production's.
Have you guys looked at doing acidosis challenges and looking at the impact that feeding your product has on changing pH at the rumen?
So in the very beginning, and that's an excellent question. So in the very beginning, the way we wanted to see, quote, point of contact effect on the rumen. So with my setup, I was able to go to the cell barn, and I bought 28 head of calves in one day, and we actually had electronic rumen boluses, which I went back there and gate cut a set of calves that were pretty uniform that I bought that day, and I installed those electronic rumen boluses in those calves at the cell barn. So yes, they were tagged, and when we loaded them and brought them back to my set of pens, they went into different pens. But I had a boy working for me. He didn't know what was what. I just said, you treat those calves, you don't treat those calves. And those rumen boluses were such a revelation for me because they actually showed me what was going on. And this was August in South Texas. Uh, it can kill calves. So seeing the effect of the drench and how quickly it changed the rumen temperature by changing the pH of that rumen, and then the performance of those cattle was a big revelation for me. And I think when we talk about turning science into economics, there it is. There's how you get your shrink back. You change the chemistry of that calf, and he goes and eats and drinks.
Yeah. So we focused a lot so far on the feedlot side and the feeding side, but there was a lot of this earlier on that was on the cow calf side, correct?
Yeah, and my dad, we ran 3,500 cows. We fortunately we didn't deal with a lot of scours. There's other places who have to calve, say, on the same ground every year, and all these soil-borne organisms, coccidiosis, salmonella, E. coli, all of those come from that situation. Um, how do you deal with that? And then say you take that same set of calves out and you turn them out on summer grass, and they're exposed to clostridiums and so forth. And you get overeaten, you get bloat in calves, in spring grasses, and bloat to me it's one of the most frustrating things that can happen to a calf. Um, I've done everything imaginable, run roped them, let them down, had to use the trocar, used other kind of products, all of those. And unless they have an obstruction, and unless you say you're too late in a frothy broke situation, this product work well. So when you go back to that cow calf side, and you look at all those organisms they're shedding and they're getting those scours, what does that do to the calf? Well, it inhibits his immune system development. So, and we would get a response from the calf, but sometimes we would get a rebound 2 weeks later because we weren't addressing the cows. And so we looked at that and go, okay, what's the easiest way to deliver to the cows and stop these organisms from replicating in these cows, and spark their immune system to handle them. And obviously nutrition is one way, and then maximizing that nutrition. And so adding our product, I think, does that, and shown lots of good results there. Guys that were having problems with scours, and then later on after they branded, they would get pneumonia in those calves. And so there's a spot where they probably lose 48 to 65 pounds on a calf, and they recognize that. And they're, you run out of tools with some of the tools that we do have, and you run out of tools, and then you try to go back and go, well, what's the common denominator here? Well, they got scours up front, and our scours protocols maybe aren't as effective as they should. So how can we enhance those?
So let's go back to some of the questions that you had, and kind of set some of this back up. How does rumen health affect performance, and how has Pro Earth have moved towards using these products because of that?
So I think you go back to the basics, and you go back to basic biology, and how an animal functions, and the rumen lining is the first defense of the immune system. And promoting that and supporting that is paramount to performance. Uh, so when an animal gets stressed in their cortisol levels, which we hear in human conversations all the time, cortisol, cortisol. Well, that affects hormones, that affects appetite, uh, and then that animal becomes dehydrated. And hydration is the key to health in every living organism. And then we have to provide that energy. So if we don't have a hydrated rumen where the immune system is intact, and we do add energy to that system or feed stuff, that can be bad also, because it can challenge that rumen. So when you recognize that, and the inflammatory response that the animal has, and that's what cortisol responds to. A certain amount of cortisol is good. You go past a certain point, it's really bad. And so we go, how do we dampen that, or how do we retard that, or how do we keep that from happening? And if we can put that heat out in that rumen, which we showed with those electronic rumen boluses, and then stabilize a neutral pH in there, then that animal goes and drinks. And it's funny, not funny, but it's very interesting to see a calf that's affected by that. And when he goes, drinks water, you don't get a temperature drop, because a lot of that water is used to neutralize that acid that he's developed in his rumen for stress. Whereas that other calf, he goes and takes a drink, and you can see his rumen temperature drop, all the things that we want our water to do, and go and hydrate that calf.
Oh, that's great. So it seems like you've got a really cool product that can really benefit a lot of the industry, as we learning more and more about leaky gut, learning more about rumen health, and how that's influencing down the line animal performance. And so there's a lot of new area here that we just don't have enough data in it. This is one of those products. I'm glad to hear that you're doing more studies, larger pen studies, that seems to could have a big impact on the beef industry.
Appreciate that.
It's time for our famous three.
Well, James, to wrap us up, I've got three optional questions.
Okay.
And so the first one is, what is your go-to beef resource?
Obviously, I keep in touch with the publications, Feedlot, Drovers, Beef Magazine. But I go and I attend the Texas A&M
Yep.
Beef Cattle Short Course every year. There's so much cutting edge stuff, and trying to stay up on all that. I think that's a great resource. You can you can get those proceedings. But I like to, as well as, having a reunion with old
Yeah.
classmates, but it's also, you see a lot of new products and a lot of new things happen.
It's a really great extension program illustrating a lot of new cutting edge research technologies. Um, and overall, just great updates on the industrial world and weather, etc. Market updates. Um, is there a book that you highly recommend people reading or utilizing?
Well, so I read a book 6 or 7 years ago, and I still go back and refer to it, and I'm having a senior moment on the author, but it's called Good to Great. And I like that book because it puts in perspective of how to be a good leader, and how it's not about us. It's about being a leader and providing input and so forth. And all the success stories of the people who stepped back from their self and had the big picture in view, and how that affected things. So I really like that book, and I recommend it.
James, in your opinion, what sets apart a successful beef professional from one that isn't?
I think the willingness to uh, truly look at new things, be innovative, but having excellent basics, understanding that animal and how handling and transportation and how that affects that animal, and doing what they can. Cows still has to do their job. I'm not making excuses there, but recognizing those things and having those uh, in your mind when you're making decisions, management decisions. So I think that's what sets people apart, and staying up with new technology is a big part of that.
That is great. Adopting new technology is always a risk, and so with new technology, it's always changing, and the research may not always be there, but doesn't mean the product's bad. And so many times we see really great products that really can be beneficial get utilized improperly or not how it's designed to be used and not work, and that product may not get adopted in the industry the way it should because of that initial use wasn't correct, and they didn't give it enough time to actually develop it, time to work. And so many times we see that issue with new technologies is that um, they just weren't given the time to be utilized in the space that they were designed to be utilized in.
Yeah, and that's a snapshot in time, and sometimes we have to hone our skills and let that product show us how it can help us, and so we need to give it a good go.
James, thanks for jumping on the podcast. Really interesting to talk about Pro Earth Animal Health, the products, what y'all are doing, some of the benefits y'all are seeing with your products, and overall the benefit that y'all can have in the beef industry from the cow-calf side all the way through the feeding side.
Super. Enjoyed it a lot.